Pritzker. Governor Pritzker, what's your response to Secretary Noem? And as a practical matter, since you oppose this troop deployment, is there anything you can do?
Well, good morning, Jake. And let me just say that the secretary doesn't know what she's talking about. She frankly says that people are clapping. They're not. They're booing her on the street, and they're booing ICE and CBP. They're marching, the CBP marching on a beautiful Sunday in Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago. They're raiding neighborhoods where instead of going after the bad guys, they're just picking up people who are brown and black and then checking their credentials. Are you a U.S. citizen? I don't know about you, but I don't carry around papers that say I'm a U.S. citizen. So you can imagine people are getting detained, they're getting arrested, U.S. citizens. And they did this, of course, when they raided a building in the middle of the night in South Shore. 130 people that were emptied out of this building. They were going after a few gang members, and instead they broke windows, they broke down doors, they ransacked the place, and there were people that were held, elderly people and children zip-tied. Elderly people held for 3 hours at a time. They are the ones that are making it a war zone. They need to get out of Chicago if they're not going to focus on the worst of the worst, which is what the president said they were going to do. They need to get the heck out.
So let's talk about that. The federal agents this week carrying out this massive nighttime raid on this apartment complex in Chicago. Reportedly, they used drones, helicopters, military-style vehicles. A Border Patrol officer told the New York Times that snipers rappelled down to the roof of the building during the raid from a helicopter. What more can you tell us about this raid?
Well, let me also mention that the Border Patrol shouldn't be there either. You know, they're claiming that the shores of Lake Michigan are the border of the United States, and therefore they should be in Chicago. They belong on the borders, truly on the borders, and where there may be some mayhem that they need to deal with, but it's not in the city of Chicago. What happened at that building is shameful. Our Department of Children and Family Services are investigating what happened to those children who were zip-tied and held, some of them nearly naked, in the middle of the night. And again, elderly people being thrown into a U-Haul for 3 hours and detained U.S. citizens. What kind of a country are we living in? And this raid at this building is emblematic of what ICE and CBP and the President of the United States, Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino, are trying to do. They want mayhem on the ground. They want to create the war zone so that they can send in even more troops. Now they're claiming they need 300 of Illinois' National Guard. Well, we didn't need them before they showed up. And what they ought to do is allow us to work with FBI, ATF, DEA, who are civilian law enforcement and understand how to target and take out the bad guys.
DHS says that CBP officers shot and wounded a woman in Chicago yesterday after, they say, she allegedly rammed a law enforcement vehicle, and agents were boxed in by multiple cars. The spokesperson for DHS, Tricia McLaughlin, accused Chicago police of leaving the scene and refusing to assist agents in securing the area. What do you know about this incident? Were federal agents boxed in and assaulted?
Well, we don't have a lot of facts. What happens in these sorts of incidents is typically ICE puts out a press release before anybody else can speak with the press, and then it gets reported on social media and elsewhere. Remember, these are the same folks who killed a person, unarmed person, just a couple of weeks ago in Franklin Park. At first, they said that the officer had been threatened with his life. The reality of it and the truth of it has now come out, and that wasn't the case. They killed somebody. So here, it's really hard to know exactly what the facts are, and they won't let us access the facts. They are just putting out their propaganda, and then we've got to later determine what actually happened.
Trump is also trying to deploy the National Guard to Portland, Oregon, after a federal judge there, appointed by Trump, I should note, temporarily blocked that effort. Top White House advisor Stephen Miller blasted that ruling as, quote, legal insurrection and said, quote, the deployment of troops is an absolute necessity to defend our personnel, our laws, our government, public order, and the republic itself, unquote. What did you think when you saw that statement from Stephen Miller?
Well, let's back up and remember this judge is a Trump-appointed judge. This judge actually said what I think should be said about all of what Donald Trump is doing, which is it's untethered from the facts. That's what the judge said, that what the government is doing, what Trump is doing is untethered from the facts. That's the case. He was claiming that it's mayhem on the on the streets of Portland. He's saying that, Chicago is a war zone. None of that is true. They're just making this up. And then what do? They fire tear gas and smoke grenades, and they make it look like it's a war zone. And they, get people on the ground are frankly incited to want to do something about it appropriately. I mean, if you are on the ground and you're having tear gas pellets fired at you, as they have been doing in Broadview, Illinois, you want to react. You want something to happen. And unfortunately, they're using every lever at their disposal to keep us from maintaining order.
Before you go, sir, we're on day 5 of the federal government shutdown, with Democrats refusing to support the Republicans' short-term spending package without some concessions. Do you think Democrats should keep the government shut down indefinitely, even if the president follows through on his threat to permanently lay off federal workers, thousands of them, and he continues to withhold even more federal funding for blue states like Illinois?
Republicans control the federal government. They control the White House. They control the Congress. They can do whatever they want. They're choosing to shut down the government. They're choosing not to discuss things with Democrats. Remember, Donald Trump is the guy who supposedly wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, and says he's the greatest deal maker ever. And yet he's unwilling to sit down and make a deal with Democrats. He only needs 8 Democrats. He can't seem to muster that. But he's unwilling to even discuss anything. And instead, he wants to shut down the government. It's wrong. What he ought to do is make sure that the health care that people need is guaranteed to them, that those subsidies that people depend upon for health care are put back. And he's unwilling to do that. He's been trying to take away health care from Americans since before he became president. He's effectuating it now. And what he ought to do is just sit down, make a deal, put those back, those subsidies back, help people get health care, and reopen the government.
The spending bill, the government spending bill, is just a 7-week spending bill. The Democrats could allow the government to reopen and then see what happens in those 7 weeks if Republicans are actually willing to deal with them on those Obamacare subsidies. You don't think it's worth it, though?
Look, this discussion happened back in April. It's happening now. It's going to happen again. The reality is that Democrats need to stand up, speak out, and the president needs to make a deal. And he's supposedly an expert at that. Let's see.
J.B. Pritzker.